Guys, wow. A joint podcast. How cool is that?
How exciting. It's been a long time in the works, actually. We've been
Rachel Godfrey.
Mark Holes. Welcome to the Chase Life podcast.
And welcome to the Mastery podcast. We are literally pulling together, doing this together to share the highs and the lows, the journey, the lessons, the stories of entrepreneurship. We've been in this quite a long time, 18 years for you, right?
19 years
19 years.
19 years.
25 years for me this year.
Of us being clinically unemployable.
Do you know what? That's a great place for us to start because I completely agree with you. I tried it myself, and 25 years later, we speak to people on a day-to-day basis that, they know that this entrepreneurial thing's for them, but the entrepreneurial space is there's so much opportunity for people nowadays. So we're going to unpack a lot of that, where we've been, where we're going, and what we've learned along the way. But it's been a big one for you too, right?
It has. I think, let's start off with when we were in employment and employed. And so I remember back when I was 14, I got a job at River Island. And I have to say, I loved it. And that was my first insight into financial freedom. I think back then you were only allowed to work 4 hours on a Saturday or a Sunday. But, to get that paycheck at the end of the month and then have that money to decide what you wanted to do with it, that was a really big hook for me. And so my work ethic really came from watching my father build a business, go from nothing to building a successful business. And then having that feeling of my own of, hey, if I work hard, I have this freedom, and freedom has then therefore become one of my highest priorities. And so from there, obviously went into physio, and then I was working in the NHS after I graduated. And it was at that point where I knew after I graduated that being employed felt like a noose around my neck. It felt suffocating to me. And I look back and I think, what was it about that? And it was... let's get woo-woo about this. It felt energetically draining to me. It felt energetically suffocating to me. And I think it was at that point I was literally shoved into my spiritual closet and told not to get out, because this is the way that life is going to be from now on. You're going to be obedient. You're going to do as you're told, and you're going to get paid, 16,000, 17,000 pounds per annum for the privilege of working from 8:30 in the morning until 4:30 in the afternoon. And I was like, okay, well, I better just shut up and get on with it. And I mean, it took me about 8 months until I was literally at breaking point.
What's the longest you were employed for? I'm going to stop the video just for 2 seconds because I've got a free gift for you. Now, I created a 5-part mini-series called the Online Coach Income Accelerator. And in this video series, I teach you the incredible opportunities that lie ahead for online fitness coaches today. I then talk to you about how to attract, engage, and market to your dream customers. Now, when you have these dream prospects in sight, I then teach you how to land the high-paying clients. Now, to download this, to get immediate access, all you need to do is to click the link in the bio, and you'll receive immediate access as soon as you submit your details. I'll see you there.
Well, actually, my job with River Island, I enjoyed that because I got myself to, early stage management there, where I was starting to deal with people. And I actually didn't leave that job until I was 18 when I went off to university. So I would say that was my longest stretch of employment. And then in the NHS, I think I lasted less than a year. And it was at that stage, I remember the absolute breaking point feeling. And I think one of the key things to get across here is that I was only 21 at the time, but people are feeling now. I speak to so many business owners, entrepreneurs, career women, and I'm sure you see the same, where people are at that breaking point. And you don't need to get to that breaking point of ripping a Band-Aid off and going, fuck this shit, and throwing it all out. You don't need to get there. I could do it because I was 21. I had no responsibilities except putting a roof over my head and food on my table. Now it's a very different story. I've got a family, children to feed, responsibilities. And so you don't need to get there. But I think it was at that stage where I thought, right, it's on my head. And I liked that responsibility, that feeling of empowerment, extreme ownership, freedom. If I mess it up, it's on my head.
Do you think on that then, and I'm not going to play devil's advocate, so I'm the same as you. I don't see myself as employable. I remember doing strawberry picking at 19, and that was at a farm down the road, and I just didn't like it. I messed around. I didn't like being told what to do. I tried to work in a pub, at the weekends. And when somebody asked for a gin and tonic, I put it in a half pint lager glass. And they were like, do you not understand that? I was like, here, when they told me they wanted Chris, I was like, Chris, I just didn't like being told what to do. And my late father said something amazing to me. He said, my son, get paid to learn to start with, because you've got a long time doing this potentially on your own. And I think, and this is just something for us to discuss, you and I got to a point where we knew that the entrepreneurial road was for us. But I think there's a lot of people now that want the entrepreneurial road to be for them, but they're not just yet ready for it, and they make the jump into it and they can't do it. Whereas I did do employment for a little bit. I worked for Savills Real Estate in the UK for a year and a half doing viewings. I then worked for my father for 2 to 3 years doing property management and viewings. And during that time, I learned how an office dynamic works, a little bit of corporate world. And whilst all the way through that, I was like, does something else for me? That was massive grounding for me. And whilst we could say, in the long term, I'm unemployable, over that 2 to 3 years, which I think that's not happening as much nowadays, that early stage of being unemployable, but also accepting that employed phase could actually be the thing that helps you have a stepping stone into entrepreneurship. What do you think?
Absolutely. And I think the other thing is that the grass is not greener. The grass is greener where you water it. However, there is also a deep sense of knowing. And if you have that deep sense of knowing and that deep calling within you, you have to make the jump. But if you don't have that, and I think a lot of people will kid themselves that they want it. But I'm not sure. Is that the feeling, or is that not the feeling? I liken it to relationships. My mum and dad always used to say to me, my mum in particular, when you meet the man, you will know. And I was like, do you really know? Rah, rah, rah. Do you really know? And, I spent my 20s and, my early 30s, and I was dating all these like nice guys, right? Like they would, on paper, they would kind of like tick the list of, you be a good daddy, you be a good husband. But I'm like, it's just something that's just not the one.
Fuck yes, fuck no.
Right? And then I read that article.
And then you sent it to me as well.
Right.
Yeah.
So I read it first, and I remember thinking, oh God, like this is how it works. It's a fuck yes or it's a no.
Yeah.
Mark Manson was so right in that. And within a couple of months, I'd met David, and I knew instantly he was different. And within 3 or 4 days, I was like, this is the guy I'm going to marry. And it was a different feeling to people who I'd met before. It was a feeling of, I don't care where he's come from. I don't care if he'd been in prison. I didn't care what his background was.
Right.
I didn't care where he was going in life. It was him.
Yeah.
And it was that deep sense of knowing.
And you get that entrepreneurship feeling.
And that's what you get in entrepreneurship.
Yeah, I don't care. And this is a big thing for me, right? I don't care how hard entrepreneurship is. I don't care how many hours I have to do. I don't care how many books I have to learn. I don't care how many flights I have to make to learn from certain people. Why I don't struggle with entrepreneurship is that I know it's right for me.
Yes.
And whether I'm in a season of pain or a season of gain, all of it is on the way.
Yeah.
And I think there's a lot of people, and we should discuss this, who are in it and not enjoying it and not prepared to do the work because they're actually, entrepreneurship isn't for them. How do we spot that?
Yeah. And I think, one of the things that you said there was talking about being this gainer's pain. I've always said, your business has seasons. We can't always be in summer making all the sales and it's easy and it's flow and it's alignment. Sometimes being out of alignment is a good thing.
Because there's something to learn from it.
Right. And that also kind of brings you closer into that phase of where you're
fixing
going.
The thing that you need. Sometimes for us, we have to go down to learn the lesson.
Absolutely.
To come out.
And it's painful every time we do it.
When it comes with this kind of roller coaster of expectations, on the way up, you're like, oh, this is great. I have this expectation with every up comes a down. There are days when I'll wake up and go, oh, this feels great. But I know sometimes during the day, something's going to hit me where something's wrong. Someone's done something wrong. Something's not working. But that's an entrepreneurial thing to kind of expect. And I suppose when you get that calling in a way that the entrepreneurship world is for you, you don't find those challenges as hard as opposed to somebody who thinks that the entrepreneurship journey is for them.
I liken this also to body transformations. So we've got business and body transformations. And quite frankly, they are almost exactly the same.
Yeah.
Building a business and building your dream physique, it's going to take longer than you think it's going to take. It's harder than you think it's going to be. It require more time, more money, more investment, more hurdles, more ups and downs, more personal growth than you ever thought it was going to be. Thank God you don't know that at the beginning. Spoiler alert, I just told you it's going to be harder, longer, more expensive than you thought it was going to be. And by the way, when you get there, wherever you think there might be, whether your goal is to have $1 million business, $3 million, $5 million business, there are always problems at that level. And I think as a junior entrepreneur,
a new version of you that you have to become at each level, right?
Oh God, like we're going to
I'm
sure
different
dig
levels.
into identity, but one of the biggest things is that even when you get there are still problems. And so I think we've all been there. And by the way, Mark and I can talk about this because we've all been there and we've done this, thinking that when you get your business to $1 million, then it's going to be all kind of smooth sailing. No. There are plenty of other problems that come in along the way, but just not being naive to that. And having the courage, the resilience, the tenacity, the patience, the dedication, and the discipline. People are not disciplined, whether that's in body, business, relationships. It takes discipline. And as Jocko Willink says, discipline equals freedom. And he is absolutely true. Because the thing is, even when you're talking to the rebel in us, because we're both the rebel, we don't confide, we don't comply by the rules. We play beyond the rules. It's not necessarily breaking the rules. You just play a little bit beyond those rules, kind of stretching the boundaries a little bit. But here's what freedom and discipline does. Discipline gives you the freedom to play beyond those rules and just see what else is out there. Because remember, being an entrepreneur is about pushing beyond those rules. Because if it had been done before, there would be a blueprint for it. Now, of course, there is somewhat of a blueprint to building a successful business. There is somewhat of a blueprint to building your ideal
without
physique.
discipline.
But without discipline, you've got nothing. And so when you've got the discipline of, here's what I do on a daily basis to make sure my business is successful. Here are the non-negotiables when it comes to a body transformation and getting my health into the most optimal position. Non-negotiables, right? 30 to 50 grams of protein 3 times a day, making sure that you're sleeping, making sure that you're lifting weights, making sure that you're walking. They are the non-negotiables of the body, non-negotiables of the business. Making sales and making sure that your marketing is on point, always looking at your avatar and your niche, continually refining that. And this is ongoing on a daily basis. It's like having these multiple plates spinning. And I think one of the biggest problems that people have is that they are treating each of these, whether it's a body or a business, like it's just one department. They're just treating their business as if it's only the sales department. Well, your sales department's not going to work unless your marketing, your finances, and everything else is in place. Oh, well, I'm only going to be focused on my physical fitness. Well, I'm sorry, but unless you've got your emotional fitness and your spiritual fitness in place, none of that other stuff is going to work. So they are all encompassing, and it does take a lot. But do you know what? That's also the best part of it, because otherwise the game would be over.
Well, do you know, discipline to me, adding to what you've said, because throughout my life, I built a body, I built my brain, and I built my business. And I always said that I'm not going to meet my wife till I've done those. Discipline to me is the ability to say no.
Yes.
Right?
Love
so
that.
if I sit down and say to myself, do I want to be spending 2 to 3 days a week doing other stuff? If I go, well, it would be nice, so I'm going to say yes to a little bit more of it, but it doesn't complement me to getting to where I want to be. So throughout my life, it's like, if my physique is really important to me, what are the areas I have to say no to get that? So the first thing for me with discipline is, what is it that I want? If I want to make a lot of money, am I going to be getting drunk at the weekends? My answer to that is no. If I want to make a lot of, in fact, the more entrepreneurial I've become, the less and less and less I've chosen to socialize and party. And that's quite interesting. It's come easy.
This is coming from us who were former party animals. I mean,
Mental.
People will look at you and I now as we sit here in our 40s and think, oh, well, you're boring. You don't go out drinking. You don't socialize, etc., etc. Well, hang on a minute. We've also done a lifetime of that.
I had incredible discipline to drink, right? But you know what's funny? With all the drinking and partying, came a poor body, no physique, and no business. And then as I started to taper down the drinking, I started to taper up with discipline. So I had a lot of discipline to make sure I partied, right? And I had a lack of discipline when it came to my body and my knowledge, right? That's when I was at my worst, when I had a lot of discipline to do the disruptive things and not a lot of discipline to do the constructive things. And as I started to get very clear on the things that I value the most, when I was 23, all I said one day when I woke up and I said, I don't want to be in the property industry anymore. I want to be in the fitness industry. That changed my discipline from not knowing what I wanted to be. And that happens for a lot of people. They don't know what they want to be. Then I went, I want to be in the fitness industry. And the minute I did that, I started to taper down the alcohol and the partying, and then taper up the discipline towards learning, studying. We talked about this just off air. I felt behind for so many years, I still do today, that I'm on this constant battle to learn more, to do more. And therefore it's easy for me to be disciplined, to say no to excessive drinking, no to social life. I keep my circle so tight. You know, I've said to you so many times, Marsh and I haven't seen many other people since the last time we saw you guys, because we're very disciplined to do what we know we want to do, stick together as a family, grow the business, and keep the people in our circle close. And I don't think people have got the discipline to know with certainty what it is that they want. So they block out some of those things and actually end up, they get there a lot quicker with this level of discipline that you've just talked about, you know?
And it's funny because just going back to the rebel in us, initially the rebel in me. So let's talk about business systems, because I have been so anti-business systems for so long, and it used to drive David wild, because I'm the type of entrepreneur, I'm the visionary entrepreneur. I see the end goal and I'm there. And I'm leaving an absolute wake of chaos in the path. And I've got my team and David to put the systems, the structures and the frameworks in place in order for me to get there. I don't know what's happening behind me. I never look behind. There's my eyes on the prize. There I go.
You gotta make sure it happens.
And I just go. And it's ready, set, play. And I'm there. And often I decide, I start taking action before I've even informed the team and I've even had the conversation with David. And there have been plenty of times where
by the way, there's a very entrepreneurial thing, because when I look at the company, when I first started, I was very, I still am, let's do this. And very often quite last minute in some cases.
Absolutely last minute.
And I think when you're the CEO of the company, everybody within the company has to know that there's those tendencies, because that's what makes us the visionary.
Absolutely.
You know, and then training everybody behind you to not just go, oh, he's doing this again. I have to be respectful to them, but at the same time, I am going to come up with ideas. I am going to do new stuff. And like you were saying, you know, you leave a wake of chaos.
Absolute,
I love
a wake of chaos. And this is what I've always been quite anti-systems. And David would, you know, when David joined the business and we set up Chase Life together, he was like, right, well, we need a system and a framework for this. And I was like, I feel suffocated by frameworks and systems. And by the time that you've built it, I'll be on to something else. So for a long time, the poor guy was like suffering through my absolute wake of chaos, trying to make some kind of system behind it. But now I see the value in the system, because, you know, what's that phrase? You don't rise to the level of your, whatever it is, you fall to the level of your systems. And that is so true. And that's where, when you have those systems in place, and I see now where we've got to with the
it's
businesses.
an order and a structure for the way that you do stuff. That's it. I think a lot of people think systems are Trello and automations. That's more of the tactical way that you can help the systems work more efficiently. But the system is an A to B of how something works. And I think, you know, for anybody watching this or listening to this, I'll be honest with you, I want the outcome, and I was not as effective and efficient with the systems, just like you. And then do you know what's funny? Is if something's broken and there isn't a system, you don't have a structured way of being able to assess if it's worked or hasn't worked. It's the same thing with KPIs, the same thing with data. I find that a lot of entrepreneurs that I come across, they don't want to talk KPIs, they don't want to talk systems, and they don't want to talk analysis of everything. And I'm going to go back to me, because I can sit here and say, oh, Ivory Tower, you know, I've got way better systems in the business. But it wasn't always like that. Why do you think that I don't know. Why do you think we didn't take them as seriously? Because it's certainly something now that my company relies on order, structure, systems, because the visionary being me, the integrators are the people from Rocket Fuel, the book.
Yeah.
The integrators are the people that do the thing. Do you know what's funny? The integrators prefer the systems and the visionaries don't. And therefore you end up having a chaotic leadership structure where your integrators want systems, but you want them to not run the company with systems because you just want to do it on the fly. And I think that's a maturing thing as an entrepreneur that goes, even though I'm nuts in my mind.
Yes, we are nuts.
We're nuts. We also have to look at these people and go, we wouldn't have the business if it wasn't for the integrators. Absolutely. And I just had the most wonderful meeting with my team this week, whereby we literally championed every new system that we've pieced together. And I go,
love that.
Guys, like, I wouldn't be where I am without you. And do you know what? I think there's a lot of entrepreneurs that see that team as like, you just work for me. A big mistake. Like, the reality is I actually work for you.
It's a co-creation.
It's a co-creation, isn't it?
It absolutely has to be a co-creation. And there is no way I could do what I do without the team.
Yeah.
And as a result of the systems, this allows the entrepreneur and the rebel to be herself and to be himself and to allow that space of freedom to just be authentic. And I got to a stage where, and again, this comes with experience and it comes with time and it comes with, I hate that word maturing, but you know what I mean? Getting a bit older and getting more wise and experienced is I started to feel more suffocated, that I couldn't be myself because I didn't have the time to think, to create, to be in my own space. And I was just constantly being busy putting out fires. And it was at that point where I thought, okay, I see now the value in systems. If you'd asked me for any of the data within my organization over the past sort of 5 to 10 years, I would have had massive anxiety. I would have been like, oh, we don't need any of that. Look at the sales we're producing. Look at this, look at this, look at this shiny object over here. And I was so good at pulling the wool over mentors' eyes that they'd be like, blindsided by this shiny object here. Well, this stuff going on down here was an absolute clusterfuck. And so this is why systems, you got to have both.
You have Chase Life. I have Coach and Concierge. This is really interesting because everything you're talking about systems. I have 3 programs in one company, right? Mm-hmm. And the company runs them all, right? We have this very, very structured systems in place. Over the last, I think one of the biggest lessons that I've learned is with immaturity and lack of clarity, you try and create too many things. And when I was younger, I think that not a lot took off hard because I was trying to do too many. I was caught out by, the short time 8-week program, online coaching, another muscle building program, trying to do lower ticket, trying to do higher ticket. I mean, you're at a place right now where you have the one thing. There's so many entrepreneurs now that are so distracted by the many, many things that they could be doing that they don't focus on the one thing. It seems like both of us are in a place right now, and it's taken us to, the ages that we are now to go, all this lesson before us enable us. I mean, me jumping from thing to thing, other thing was actually me learning. Yeah, maybe that's not a right thing to run a business, because there's some people that before me, way younger than me, have just focused on that one thing and made it a huge success. But there's a lot of people going to be watching this right now that know they're bouncing from high ticket to low ticket to this program to that program. It's the same people that do, fitness and high rocks and CrossFit and all these different things. What were you going through in your head? Because I'd love to try and unpack my mind as well through all the chaos of trying to create lots of different things. We've gone through so many different personality changes. Do you think it's a personality change that we've gone through that's caused that chaos, and that people have a lot more? The less chaotic and less personal development somebody has to do, the more that they can stay in control and stick on the one thing. Because I've ended up at 47 for the last 3.5 years. We've been really, really, really dialed in on that one thing more than I ever have in 25 years in my career.
I think I'm very lucky to have invested. I mean, we've both invested huge amounts of money in mentorship. And one of the things that all of my mentors have said to me is just do that one thing. And so,
but it hasn't kept us on the straight and narrow as well.
No, it hasn't.
And
No,
this is
because that's the
interesting
rebel in
because
us.
it is the rebel, but I've been mentoring for a long time now.
Yeah.
And it does frustrate me when
It is frustrating.
When coaches come to see me, it's like fat loss. They come to see you, or they come to see you for business, coaching, entrepreneurship. And when they come to us and they go, this is what I want to do. And I can think of people I'm working with right now that come on a call with me, and they've got lots of different ideas, and they're right. And I was that guy with all my mentors where they'll tell me this, do that. And I'm like, no. And was that the same with you?
You know what it comes down to is emotional stability.
Yeah, absolutely.
And it comes down to emotional stability because whatever your number is and whatever your figure is. So let's just say arbitrary. You're a fitness coach. Let's just say that you've got a sort of a mid-ticket program that's $1,000. Unless you are doing 10 grand a month, right? And let's just say we're throwing out figures here. It might be 10 grand, it might be 20 grand, it could be 50 grand, whatever your number is. Unless you are hitting that with that one product alone, you have no business in introducing others.
Yeah.
So, as an example, I started my career. Obviously, I was a physio. Then I went into strength conditioning, personal training. As a strength conditioning coach, I was doing the one-on-one stuff. I then launched the Athletic Fox Blueprint in 2012. So that involved obviously me then learning the tech skills in order to be able to do that, because there was nothing like there is now. That was me going from a mid-ticket, because I was charging $200 an hour of personal training back in 2012, to then a low ticket at $30 a month with the Athletic Fox Blueprint. It was only at that stage where I could start to bring that in. And that then became my thing, is that's all that I did. But then what I have found now is that since we founded Chase Life in 2015, we've only been high ticket. And it's only at this point now where I am sitting here as almost a 20-year vet of entrepreneurship. I have the emotional stability. I've come through that phase of my personal life where I'm happily married. That's a very secure relationship for me. The children are 5 and 6. I've come through that being a young mum, not knowing what the fuck I'm doing, and all of the chaos and the craziness that comes with that. Only now do I feel that I'm in a place where I can bring in my new product. And actually, just because it's me, I'm launching 2 new products. One of which is a completely new business.
Because you're emotionally stable. And that's such an important point that you have here, is that we've got coaches go, well, I want to create an app. I want to create high ticket coaching. I want to create a product. You can only create it all if you have the emotional stability to do the one thing. And it's such an older, wiser thing of us to be trying to share this. But I do feel, I remember doing a podcast with our great friend, Phil Lurney.
Yeah.
And he said to me, which was interesting, he said a podcast with me a long, long time ago, do you not think that younger entrepreneurs have to go through personal development to the point where you're almost, like if we put people in eggshells and we try and give them everything, part of the turmoil of emotional instability is you've got to create these multiple products?
Well, let's talk about balance for a minute, because I know that this might seem like a bit of a funny thing to talk about, because obviously with what we do at Chase Life, a lot of our clients are high performing, overachieving, high level execs, C-suite, and then obviously experienced entrepreneurs. And a lot of these women they're busy mums, they've got successful careers, they are extremely time poor, highly stressed, and have no balance in their life. And then we've got us when we were in our 20s of doing that. You should be, in my opinion, unbalanced in your 20s. That is the time for you to graft and to work now. Yeah. This is me sitting here as a former...
I'd get a bit lost.
Get completely lost.
Get lost. Maybe I
have ridiculous stories.
The parties, the crazy stuff, trying to find me.
No regrets, just stories, right? We've got plenty of stories along the way. Yeah. Get lost in life doing that, but work hard and play hard. But then it gets to this stage of, the traits. So we talk about this a lot with our clients. Like the traits that make you successful in the first place are also then the traits that become the roadblock to your success, the roadblock to your financial gains, the roadblock to your career success, roadblock to your business success, and certainly the roadblock to your health and the demise of your health if you're not careful. So we have this evolution of balance, I think, where in your 20s, you should be fairly unbalanced, if I'm honest. You know, both of us struggled with perfectionism. I was a borderline workaholic. I was a human doing, so my self-worth was completely tied up in being busy and achieving. I also drank way too much because it was my outlet. I trained hard and then I drank too much and I partied really hard. And listen, no regrets, just stories. Got lots of stories to tell. You know, probably not as good as your stories of dancing on tables, but there we go. We'll leave that one there.
Many.
And then you kind of get to the stage where I remember I was probably 31, having done I talked to David about this last week, having done that week in Marbella over the summer at 31. And I was like, I do not like the trajectory that my life is going, behaving the way that I'm behaving. My business was doing well, could have been doing better. But the behaviors and the traits that got me to having a, you know, $250,000 business that was online, you know, when I was 30, were also the traits that were causing me to drink too much, to be engaged in behaviors like, you know, the human doing, where I didn't feel good enough. I didn't feel that I was good enough, smart enough, bright enough. I was in a male-dominated industry. I always felt like I had to compete with the boys and be better and smarter to gain respect, because I didn't want to be just seen as like the pretty girl. That would have been the worst thing for me, is to be seen as the pretty girl or lazy. That would have literally been like career suicide.
Do you not think I've called this for years, subconscious living versus conscious living, right? What I mean by that is, through my 20s, I truly do believe that we take on a lot of the values of our parents.
Yes.
Right. And that doesn't mean that they're forced upon us. It's just that depending on our ability to be able to consciously decide what we want, we almost allow those values to be put into us. Like my father's value around rugby and property development and money, you know, so I take those on, right? And so for those first 20 in my 20s, I'm escaping by drinking and partying with these really quite destructive subconscious behaviors.
But it's also serving you, because it is pushing you forward.
Pushing me closer and closer to start living a conscious life.
Yes.
So what I did at 23, I actually said, Mark, you're not happy. I don't know where it came from. I'd tell you what it was. Jane Bateman was one of my first personal training clients in the gym. And she ended up being trained by Richard Bandler in NLP, okay, by Richard Bandler. And she now, it's huge in energy medicine now. But she said to me, while we were personal training one day, she said, you have a gift. And I said, whatever. She went, no, you do, because you're impacting me and the people in the gym, they listen to you. And at that point I was subconscious. I was like, yeah, whatever. I'm just enjoying being in the gym and training people. And she went, no. Let me allow you to please read this book. And then she advised me to go to this breakthrough experience. And it was at that point I suddenly realized that thoughts do become things, but not just thoughts. It's intentional thoughts and then the action around those thoughts. So the secret to me was a fluffy way into personal development, because, you know, just thinking I want to make money wasn't going to make money, or just thinking I want to be a better personal trainer. It was the thinking, the identifying, and then it was the action. And then I moved from what I believe subconscious living to conscious living. So then I got to my 23 and I was like, okay, now I want to be a personal trainer with reputation, with knowledge, with skills, but I also want results that people actually come on board with me. And it was at the age of 23, between age of 23 and 30, I did conscious living, which was basically taking the thing that was in my brain that I didn't like and the person that I think I was becoming and creating a version of me that I wanted to become, and then investing all my money in, essentially, I can only liken to this. If I opened up the car and went for a service, it was fucked.
Yes.
Right? Subconscious living to me was when you looked at my engine at that 23, 24, whatever personal development I needed to do to shape the person that was going to be a multimillionaire, that was fucked. So what I had to do was uncover it all,
yes,
and then start going, I need new spark plugs, I need new brake discs. Holy shit, there's a lot of work to do. And I got very overwhelmed to start with. And then I go, let me just do one bit at a time. And I feel there's a lot of people that live subconsciously for very long, until someone dies in the family,
yes,
till they hit rock bottom. There's always a down story. The fat person that's get coached by you and David goes, I don't want to die. And then suddenly this weird thing happens with people where it becomes easy.
It does become easy.
And for me, when I look at people used to say in my gym, Mark, just stop telling fat loss people it's easy. I'm like, it's a decision.
It is a decision.
Tony Robbins' thoughts about this, when it becomes a must have, it's easy. And I find that, somebody I was speaking to today said to me, I can get in shape. I can create content every day, but I can't build my business. I'm like, because it's not yet a must.
Yes.
And I find entrepreneurship, people struggle through it because there's this subconscious living of personal development, but the conscious idea that you want to build a business, and it creates tension in your subconscious versus the conscious. It's like when my conscious aligns, everything in entrepreneurship becomes a lot easier. There are people that want to be entrepreneurs, aren't there? There are people that want to be in great shape, but they don't really understand the mechanisms of why their brain's doing these things.
I love the analogy you took your car to the service. And this is what happens is you come through your 20s where you're trying to find yourself and it's a bit chaotic, and that's fine. And there's not very much balance there. But I think a lot of people then, you get into that phase of you have children and you're still trying to push your career forwards. And then you end up, as most of my clients are in their late 30s, 40s, incredibly stressed, incredibly overwhelmed, doing a poor job at work or just getting by work because they're prioritizing it, have the most awful mum guilt and don't really have a good relationship with their spouse. And it's all a mess because they haven't opened Pandora's box. They haven't been to the car service. And in their heads, they think, oh my God, I cannot. When am I going to have time? I'm so stressed and overwhelmed already. And I get it. I do get it. But actually, talking about systems, there is a system and a structure in order to be able to unpack that becomes easy. And let me tell you, the easy way to do it is to show up as who you really are, not who you think you should be, and create the next level version of you and that identity, getting so clear on the vibrational frequency, the energy, who is that person, and start acting from that place and making decisions from that place, not who you are today. Because honestly, who you are today is an old version of reality.
Do you think, therefore, then, and this is more of an entrepreneurial episode that we're talking about today, which I absolutely love, because people might be thinking, oh, we're talking about people with problems. I'm like, no. When our business turned over $1 million, right? Mm-hmm. And I went, how do I get to the next level? I would class myself at that point as like an athlete in business, right? But I'm playing Premiership, but I want to get into England, right? Does that make sense?
Such a good analogy, yes.
So it's like, I think a lot of people are thinking we're talking about people that are broken. We're not.
Absolutely not.
If you're in Premiership in rugby, and you love rugby, right?
It's good to great.
It's good to great,
yes.
Right? So right now, the season we're in our business, if people actually understood what revenue we make, what the team structure we have, you're crushing it. I'm like, but if I'm now playing for England, how do I get to play for the British Lions? Right? So my whole point is, it's entrepreneurism and the levels you want to play. It's either removing devils, or it's implementing systems, or it's taking personal development a lot more seriously. Because I find that, I just need another tactic. I just need another way of another high ticket offer. And it's like, you actually just need to become the next newest version of yourself.
Yes.
Those seasons that you've been through, what has been the most, and I'd love to hear this, because it's such a great thing for me to hear from you as well. The biggest breakthrough from a personal aspect that's got you to the next season. Because I was still one of them recently with you, and it's very clear on your socials, but I wonder whether that's probably one of the biggest ones.
I think it's always being ahead. So remember I said, I say a lot, your body's a delayed representation of who you really are. Your business is also a delayed representation of who you really are, because as the business owner, entrepreneur, you have to be ahead emotionally, physically ahead, spiritually ahead, and holding that space. And yes, I've come out of my spiritual closet a lot since, I was shut in back in 2005. But we have to look at this from an energetic level. We can talk about personal development all day long, but it's all the same thing.
No, it is. And I completely agree.
It's all about energy and frequency. And a lot of people get spooked by that. But, once you've come out of your spiritual closet and you realize, and you've been in business for long enough, it's all about energy and frequency. And people see the word like manifestation, well, I'll use reality creation. What is reality creation? Reality creation is having your vibrational frequency over here and knowing with absolute certainty that that's where you're going. But you have to let go of the how. We don't know how we're going to get there yet, but we know what it's going to feel like in intimate detail. So here's the thing, is that before you hit $1 million in your business, you were operating as, making decisions from, and leading as the entrepreneur who was already at $1 million and beyond. So when you got there in the physical world, in your day-to-day reality, that was long gone. You're now at 200K. You're now at 2 million, or you're now at 1.5. You're now at 2. So where we are operating within our businesses right now is over here. And the rest we just know is just going to come along the way. Now,
you've got to shift.
Absolutely.
From the, do you know, I listened to a podcast recently. I was at a reel I saw, and he said, what's the biggest thing that you've noticed that billionaires do that people don't? And he said, it's what they are. And he said, they're calm.
Calm.
Right?
Yes.
And I was like, that's crazy, because ultimately you're talking about these seasonal changes in your frequency and your energy. And therefore, I would say right now, with the highest amount of pressure that we have to go to the next level, there's a higher responsibility for me to act and deliver and communicate and lead at the level that we're playing at, the two, as
yes.
opposed to at right now.
Yes.
So I'm basically saying, okay, team, we need better marketing, better this, to do the thing we're doing right now. No. I need to be almost operating with the vision, the leadership, the energy and the frequency of where we want to get to. And that responsibility is on me as an entrepreneur to not just read more personal development books and then hope I'm going to get there. It's
embodying it.
What will that person, like, if I want to have an amazing physique, like I'm 47, if I want to stay in this shape, how have I got to eat, sleep and drink to be 56, to be 57 with this? Not how do I keep it today? And I think that's where you're going with the energy and the frequency. Absolutely. Is that if your business is doing 1 million, what's the gap between 1 million and 2 million behavior, leadership, frequency, energy, and then almost knowing? And how do you find out what that needs to be?
Well, you create it in your mind, whatever you can create in your mind, you can have.
Joe Dispenza is a big one.
Right. Yeah, so change your energy, change your energy, change your state,
change your whole life.
Change your whole world.
Yeah.
But so many people are clear on what they don't want. They're not very clear on what they do want. And it takes a lot of energy to be in and to focus on what you do want, because what you don't want is addictive because it's familiar and you keep going back there. And we all do it. We all keep going back to those thoughts and, those old behaviors, but you've really got to cut ties with that and have more emotion and more certainty and more front of mind of what you do want rather than what you don't want. And it is about that. And that's literally manifestation. When one is getting clear on what it is that you do want and how is that going to feel operating from that place. Because one of the things there that I'm going to pick up on that you said about billionaires being calm, the reason that happens is that when you hit your $1 million business, you look at that and go, well, of course, it's completely normal. I knew that was going to happen. There's no emotional change. You're not looking at that going, oh my God, I've hit $1 million in revenue. Where's my band of marching mice? And where's the firecrackers? And
it's surprised I've hit it. It's not, I knew I was going to hit it.
Well, of course you're going to. Because that's what you'd planned, and you're already on to the next thing. It's like, we should still congratulate ourselves for the hard work. And I think as former perfectionists, stress addicts, workaholics, we're always chasing the next thing. But I always like to say to my clients, like, what's the win today? What's the brag today? We have brag Fridays in our private client group. It's tell me the thing that you are so fucking proud of that you've done this weekend. It can be something so small or something that's really big. And we've got this group of amazing, incredible women who are the top 1% of performers. And their brags are just incredible. I mean, some of them are huge bonuses, but then some of them are like, do you know what? I went to bed. I put the kids to bed and I went to bed at 7:30 and it was glorious. And that's such a massive brag for me, and congratulations to them. That's a massive brag for them. But to allow yourself that space to have your own brags, which also brings me on to the team and a community of so many people have, if you're lucky enough to have, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 people who you can call on in an emergency and they'll pick up and they'll help you. Who have you got in your inner circle where if you won the lottery tomorrow, you could call them and be like, oh my God, I won the lottery. Or you can share your biggest win and they will go, oh my God, I'm so genuinely so happy for you. Because one of the highlights of my career and highlights of my job is that I get to hear the wins from clients. And that fuels me more than anything else. Okay, you've lost, 5 kilos. That's awesome. But, I went to bed last night and I stripped my husband. I didn't turn the lights off. Massive brag. Like that literally fills me with so much joy, because not only is that building confidence in that woman, but it's building their relationship. When they build their core relationship, everything else around that flourishes.
But as an entrepreneur, what you've just said, I mean, I love that. But if you actually look at an entrepreneur and who they need to become to get to every different level, they're trying to get to a level financially. They're trying to get to a level with team. They're trying to get to a level with marketing. And then I'm like, hold on a minute. But there's chaos in your body. There's chaos in your health, and there's chaos in your relationship. You and I both have calm relationships.
Yes, very calm.
My wife is the most amazing person in my life and brings calmness. And I want to be around her. I want to spend time with her. And I don't finish my day and end up having a chaotic relationship. This is really interesting, because if you look at what I see as an entrepreneur, is when I see chaos in other areas, I'm like, that's taking away the energy you've just talked about. If you need to go from 500,000 to 1 million turnover business, or whatever you are at right now, and you're trying to do that just with the business systems, and you're naive enough to say, well, I know I've got chaos around my health and my sleep. I'm not sleeping a hell of a great deal. I've got chaos in my relationship, but that's okay. It's outside of business. I want to focus on the business. Entrepreneurially, you're playing a losing game.
Yes, you are.
You're playing a losing game, because when I actually look at this and I go, the most successful people I know have success around money and business, have success in relationship, have success around time down and time back, and success in their health and their body. And I've just seen a complete, structure that's to be true when somebody's growing. I mean, they're not growing.
What's the one single factor in that? It's the person.
Yeah, it's the person that has basically said, for me to be a multimillionaire, or for me to be a millionaire, or for me to be, go back to what you said about energy and certainty of what I need, what does that look like? And this is really interesting, because everything we're talking about has gone back to they're emotionally stable. They've got relationships that are right, not relationships that are just a relationship, which I've been in, which has created, the funny thing is with the wrong relationship is it occupies space in your mind that will shatter any business growth, because the business growth you're having, you're not giving your full attention to, is just reactive business.
Yes.
Reactive mind, reactive relationship, reactive business. You're just going to the gym to just do a training session rather than intentionally train. You're eating because you're on the run, because you're too stressed and you haven't got any time. And then that whole jump of 500,000 to a mil to 1.5 million never happens, because you're not really addressing everything else. And I think that now there's been many times, Rachel, I don't know whether you're the same, where I go, my life is so ordered, disciplined and structured and calm. Is it right? Because it's so opposite.
But it's not. But it's
Do you know what I mean?
But it's also not. I mean, I feel still chaotic.
No, well, chaotic in the journey of where you're trying to get to, because chaotic could be time, but it may be that you're still you're ridiculously structured.
Very structured.
But
and everything.
That's because between, I think, you get up a lot earlier than me, but between that time and that time, it blows my mind. I go to sleep for 7 hours.
Yeah.
I'm not exhausted. I'm not burnt out, and I'm not tired. In the evening, I'm ready for bed.
Yes.
But I don't not want to get up the next day, no matter how hard the business is. But I find a lot of people, they're growing this business almost that they hate. Yes, there is chaos. I think there has to be chaos, because if it was too calm and structured,
we'd be bored, I think.
We would.
But I think, but this is the thing. I mean, I think you and I married the same person, like energetic and spiritually, like, you know, Mush and David, that they're very similar type of people. Yeah. And we're just the wild ones.
No.
But I'm so grateful for that. You know, he allows me to just be me, and he's the calm presence that I needed. And actually, I think since both of us met our respective spouses, we've grown a lot. But I had also grown myself to a stage where I remember us having a conversation in London. It would have been in like 2015 at some stage, where we had grown ourselves to a point where we knew who we were, what we stood for, and where we were going in life. And exactly as you said, you wanted to build the body, the business, and the brain before meeting somebody else. And I did too. And I really did focus on that. I built the body, I built the business, I built the brain. And I felt then calm in myself because I knew my values around, and I'd done a lot of work around, okay, so what is it? What are my values? What allows me to be in my calm state? And that is, for me, to be healthy. There's nothing worse than feeling off. And you don't realize how good you can feel. And when you feel good in your body and good in your energy, everything else comes from that. Being financially free or being financially stable is a really big one for me. And so I saved money from the time I was working with Ireland at 14. I've never, ever, ever lived outside of my means. Never. I've always had a savings fund, an emergency fund, and various different funds and pockets of money. And I've invested. And I wish I'd started to learn the proper game of investment a lot sooner than I did. Yeah. But to have a diversified portfolio is now dead. Like my portfolio is pretty straightforward, and it's in very specific markets. But to have that before I could be fully myself and fully authentic in with somebody else, because you're 100% of your relationship. Like, people come together and you say, oh, well, we're 50% of this partnership. He's 50%, I'm 50%. No, you're 100%. And I came into my relationship with David. I met him, I was 100%. And he came and he was 100%. So our relationship just gelled and it just worked. And it was the same when you met Marsha. I remember you called me and you were like, do you want to go for lunch at Gaucho's? I've met somebody. And I was like, yes. And I remember that first lunch where you brought Marsh to Gaucho's. We were sat there, it's a Sunday afternoon, we were by the river, and I was like, and I literally...
I brought Marsh, didn't I?
Yes, you brought Marsh.
We're in Richmond.
Yes, and I turned to David and I said to David, I was like, she's perfect. And she was perfect for you.
Do you know what's quite funny about that? When my frequency was off, I met Marsh when I was ready, went for the first date, and because I always ended up with drama, but I think I brought drama in so that I had a reason to deflect because I wasn't ready to settle. And then I met Marsh, and when I was on the way home, I said to myself, wow, I don't want to deflect that.
Yes.
And that unsettled me. So I actually went for an energy medicine session and realized that there was a big blockage around here. And my personal development coach said, do you remember you put that block in 10 years ago?
Wow.
Remember you put the block there? You wanted to build a body, business, and brain. Do you want to let go? And so we did an energy medicine session for an hour, and I cried for an hour on the way home at Snake Pass in Manchester, releasing the energy, and that allowed me. And that made me realize is that what I choose to stop will stop.
Yes.
If I choose to go, this is the amount of money that I want to make, but I'm getting stressed that I'm not making the next amount of money, it'll stop me. And then when you choose to let it go, whether it's somebody helping you or somebody conditioning you, but that is such an important point. Like for me, you have the right energy around you that allows you to be yourself and authentic to yourself. When I got with Marsh, we both said to each other, I'm ready. And I think there's a lot of relationships that are still not working together, and that creates the energy drain for the entrepreneurship side of the business.
Yes.
I
had a conversation with my mum this morning. I went for breakfast with my mum, and I actually said this to her. We were talking about relationships, and I said to her, if I wasn't in a marriage that provided me the certainty and stability and the calmness.
Yeah.
I said, I prefer to be a single mom.
Yeah.
Because the idea of dragging somebody along is incredibly stressful. Now, I will caveat that by saying a lot of our clients are in a situation where they find their spouse to be a drain. Now, when we look at that, we always look at both sides. The reason they feel like their spouse is a drain or their husband is a drain and their husband's nagging them is because the husband cares, right? So there is an element of teaching that entrepreneur or that C-suite exec, you can't behave like this anymore. You're not in your 20s anymore. All of that chaos and all of that unbalance you had when you were in your 20s, that was fine then. You've got through having kids somehow and now you're on the other side of that and your relationship is starting to suffer. This is not fair on your spouse. He is doing you a favor by holding up a mirror. And a lot of the time they're ready to hear that. They love their partner, they love their spouse. But sometimes it does end in divorce, sadly. And it's because, look, not all the time. Sometimes, people don't make it. That's fine. But a lot of the time, if you show up to that relationship as 100% of yourself, these women are not showing up as 100%. And often their spouse isn't either because they're burnt out, they're exhausted, and they're dealing with a lunatic. Right? I'm a lunatic at times. I know David he tells me. He says to me sometimes, he knows that I come away for one night a month where I just have to be in my own space. I'm a massive introvert. I need to be in my own space for my own creativity and thoughts. I've been away from home now for 24 hours. I'm full of ideas. I cannot wait to go back and unleash chaos on him and tell him what we're going to do. But, he says to me sometimes, I think you need your night away. And that's his way of saying, you're being fucking chaotic, get out of the house.
Do you know what? I went to London a couple of months ago, or a month ago, I think it was. And I sat on the plane and I love my wife.
Yes.
I love my son. I love the life that we have together, but I needed that flight.
Yes, you do.
And I had 3 days in London, and I've got a few days in London next week. And I love my family, but my family get a better me when I have that 4 days.
Yes.
And when we have our away days, they're so good for my mind. And I think that we almost don't allow ourselves to be true to ourselves because we feel that we have to be there. And I think that there are so many people in a relationship, and this is a really interesting area to discuss. I met Marshall when I was 38, right? And there's a lot of people that meet their partners, especially when it comes to business, in a different season, when they are chaotic, when they are a bit of a mess. And then 10 years later, they've started to unravel who they are, but they haven't brought their partner with them. So they've almost met the partner when they were a bit crazy. And then as they've started to unravel them, they almost then go, that partner's not right for me now, or I'm becoming a better version of myself, but I haven't brought that person with me. I mean, Marsha and I spend a lot of time talking about, how we're showing up for each other, how I'm operating every day, what does she want to do differently. And I even spoke to somebody recently who said, I wish I'd shared my vision with my partner more often, because ultimately I feel that there's a lot of people that start this entrepreneurial journey out of this chaotic life that they've had, they want to go on this entrepreneurial journey, but it's really a partnership journey.
It is a co-creation.
It's a co-creation. And I said to Marsh, recently we sold a home that we bought in Dubai. And I said, I don't want me to make the decision what we're doing for the next 6 to 12 months or 2 years. What would you like us to do? And then she was like, well, you'll make the best decision. I said, I'd like us to make the decision. And when I spoke to somebody that I know very well, he said, well, that wouldn't have come across my mind to think of including my partner. I make the decisions for the family. And it's like, I see that a lot with entrepreneurs, right? They make that decision to go upwards with the business. They throw themselves in and say to their partner, this is all for us. And it's like, well, you're deciding it's for you. And then that creates an energy frequency that's off with the relationship, It is a co-relationship.
It is. And actually, David and I've had a conversation last week about my role in the business and his role in the business. Obviously, we're both directors of the company, but we've got very different styles of doing things. And so, I said to him, we grow at different phases and different levels, and you can't change somebody. So I'm never going to try and change him. And at points, he'll grow faster than I will sometimes. And that's fine. We just know that's, he's going away this weekend. He's going to one of the Joe Dispenza courses in Switzerland. And so I know he's going to come back from now. And there's going to be a couple of days where I'm going to have to kind of get used to the new energy of like, okay, so what did he learn over there? And it's from a feminine energy perspective, I want him to come back and tell me everything that he's learned and give me a massive meta report and the downloads and, oh my God, how was that meditation for you? And men don't do that. And so I think when you understand this masculine feminine dynamic as well, of men are very different species to women, and we operate very differently. And now I give David a heads up of, hey, I'm about to give you a meta report. Are you ready to give me your undivided attention? And if he's in the middle of something, he'll say no, but give me 10 minutes. And so when you start to understand each other like that, we had this conversation last week about I wanted him to shift his energy around something in the business. And he was like, he went very into the logical of, well, we've got this to achieve and this to achieve. And so I just have to do this, this and this. And I was like, but energetically, that doesn't match with what I'm doing over here. And so one of the other big things that I think is really important about relationships is that I see a lot of people always wanting an answer there and then, and always dissolving a problem there and then. You've got to be okay, and this is exactly the same as entrepreneurship. You've got to be okay with letting the problem just go for a little bit. The best problem solvers are ones that I'm really good at problem solving. It's one of probably my best skills, is looking at an issue, looking at a problem, going, okay, can't find the answer right now. I'll let it go and it'll come to me. And the answer will come to me and the problem always gets solved. And I think relationships are a little bit like that. It would have been pointless, David and I continuing that conversation, because he was in his one way, I was in my one way. We both needed to go away, think about, what each other was saying, and then kind of come back. And the problem's been solved. Or we agree to disagree. And I think we don't argue. We have a very calm relationship. Are there times he pisses me off? Well, of course he does. I think he's a silly idiot sometimes. And I'm sure he thinks I'm a silly idiot sometimes. And, I'll see him sometimes roll his eyes and walk out the room. But I've got the emotional stability not to go, hey, why did you roll your eyes at me? I'm like, I know why you rolled your eyes at me. It's because you didn't like what I said. And I'm just going to be okay with you going off to your office, having a bit of a sulk or being by yourself, whatever you need to do before we can discuss it. And likewise, there are sometimes times where I just think, oh God, why hasn't he done that thing yet? Oh God, for God's sakes, why can't he do that? And I just walk away. And he has got the emotional stability to go, okay, she needs space. Because a lot of the time people will say, well, no, you need to discuss that now. Why do we need to discuss it now? It's just going to cause friction. Let me have my own space and time. Let me think about it. And often he's right. And often I'm right.
Well, right? You've got the entrepreneur that does dedicate themselves to learning more. And in the relationship, you've got the entrepreneur that potentially does that. But I also feel it's the responsibility of the entrepreneur that's become more stable, that's really got their eggs in a basket, to complement the partner, whether or not the woman's the entrepreneur or whether or not the guy's the entrepreneur. It's not that one person's going to be behind, but ultimately you can't go on this trajectory of your life to optimize this entrepreneurial vision that you've got and expect this person to just be sitting there, not growing, not changing, and not respecting the things that they value deeply. I know I love my son deeply, but I also know how important it is that I make the time, and that even though I love the entrepreneurship side, and a lot of people, I can get this wrong, that they're so inspired by entrepreneurship, they leave the kind of the wife or the husband and the children. And this goes back to everything that we talk about balancing, because I've had to balance when my training gets done, when my time with my family gets done. And I think a lot of people don't want to compartmentalize them into time blocks and when I'm doing them and how I'm doing them. But you put your training into a block because it has to get done in a time frame. I actually put my family in blocks.
Yes.
I put my family in 8 till 9 and 7 till 8. And then we Bath Mason. My wife and him, they know when I'm about, and then I know when I can give my business my full attention. 1 till 7 in the daytime, I'm like, if I need to come downstairs and go to the mall and sit in a coffee shop and just be myself, I can. But if I go downstairs and, oh my God, they're going to say, can you do this with us? I think entrepreneurially, it's so important that you structure the week and the family time and the things that you do. It's how I operate. But I think that there's a lot of chaos that rules a lot of families when it comes to business, because it's not planned, it's not structured, and it's your way. And then the other person's left dragging behind. And you said this a while ago. when there's a lot of shouting, it's almost like your partner wants you to hear them, that they need to be heard and a part of the relationship. And I hear a lot of people saying, yeah, but I'm trying to grow the business. I need my time to grow the business. It's like at the detriment of your family.
So, as a mum, the mum guilt is so real. And when I had the kids, David took over 70 to 80% of the business and I took a bit more of a back seat. And it was really tough. I'll be honest with you, the mum guilt is so real, especially when, they're 2 and 3 and working from home. I would come down the stairs, mummy, mummy, mummy. And the heartstrings are so real. And so what we decided to do very early on, like I was delusional when I first had Xavi, and I remember him being 3 or 4 days old, and I was sat on my laptop feeding him, like breastfeeding with a pillow, and I was like, oh, this entrepreneur shit's fucking easy with a baby. Little did I know it wasn't gonna finish like that. And I remember he would have been about 4 or 5 months old, and David and I were in Spain over the summer, and I felt the immense amount of pressure, and obviously having a baby, and then because I had 2 so close together, that the pressure was just enormous. And I remember that this shift and this decision where I said to David, why are we doing this? What do we need to just continue our, just how we are, our lifestyle as we are? What do we need? And at the time it was like just 5 clients a month. And that was such a huge weight off our shoulders. And then we went into COVID, and then the business went crazy where I didn't see David for about 6 months. And, I had a newborn baby and an 18-month-old and a newborn baby. And he was COVID was crazy for our business because I think a lot of people realized, oh my God, I'm not happy with the way that things are going. I need to change. And so, but after that, I joke now that, my daughter's just turned 5, Xavi's 6, and I feel like I've just come off maternity leave. And people have said that to me, since August last year, where they're both in preschool now, where I only now feel that I have the emotional capacity and the space to be like, okay, now I can focus on the business again. So we did put the business into maintenance mode, and that was really hard for me to do. For somebody who is always on the growth trajectory and always looking forward, for me, that growth of being a mum and not having my own time and having these little monkeys who literally drive you crazy was a massive, massive learning curve for me.
You said something very interesting. And this comes back to something we discussed earlier. Before we came on air, it was the fact that there is a number.
Yes.
And that for you was 5 clients a month.
Yes.
And I feel in entrepreneurship, especially with the coaches that we work with, there isn't a number. Whether it's a number of clients who want to sign up every month, whether it's a number of clients that's in the program, whether it's the amount of revenue you want to make or profit they want to make, or the life that they want to leave, it's just, I want to grow.
But for what?
Right. So then there's no clarity. Like we talked about this earlier. I know over the next 6 months, there's a number that I want in the company, and all the KPIs in the company are all set and geared towards that number. And I'm not going, it needs to be this number. It's that number, right?
Yes.
And that was really liberating for me. And it always has been very liberating. But the most uncomfortable time in my life was when there wasn't a number, when there wasn't a target, and it was just more, right? My physique and my bodybuilding, there was a number by the off-season end, 122 kilos. That was the off-season goal with X% body fat. And then we're in a good place. I've led my life in so many different numbers and so many different structures. Entrepreneurially, I feel it's so important. When you said we need 5 new clients a month, that gives you the clarity if that's what you need. Yeah. But you also are putting yourself in your own season.
Yes.
And I think when you take ownership of the season that you're in your business, it's really freed me, because I've got friends of mine that are earning, 10 million, 50 million, 20 million. And you look at that and you're just like, that's what I'm chasing for. And I'm like, am I chasing their life or my life? Because you know what? I sat with Marsh last night and we had a meal. And I said something really, really interesting to her. When I first moved to London, and we lived in central London, we lived in Notting Hill, and I used to walk out of the house with all the colourful houses in Notting Hill. And I went, I live here. And I said to Marsh, every day that I have that feeling is such an empowering feeling for me, because it means I'm fulfilled and I'm actually achieving something that I've set out to do. And when I drove to the Buy Hills Mall yesterday, which is my favourite mall, and I pull up and I get out and I walk in and I have the same feeling of when I first moved to Notting Hill, that what I'm striving towards is what I want. And when I get there, I don't go, oh, it's great to be here, but I wish I was in a different one, or as this was, because I actually know what's fulfilling to me right now. Yeah. And I think that is so liberating for an entrepreneur, is that whatever I'm doing, whatever I'm striving for, I've got clarity and certainty. But it's when I don't have that clarity and certainty, it then loses sight of what values I'm living according to. And very often I end up living according to somebody else's. So yes. Are you building a business that's truly what you want? Because I look at Marsh, and she said, you know what, Mark, she said this last night, I've got so many lovely friends around Dubai Hills now. And I was like, I'm really happy here. And I was like, that's us answering our own little kind of world answers. Mm-hmm. Are we happy? And are we striving for this next level right now? And it's like, yeah, it wants to be here, but it's acknowledging what your number is, what you're striving for, and then saying, are we on track for our thing, as opposed to just this broad thing that doesn't give you any specificity. And it's so important that you can sit with your partner and say, we create a life map, and I didn't think we'd ever be in Dubai. I didn't even think I'd live in a different country. I didn't think we'd live where we live now. Didn't think we'd be doing all the things that we do. And we almost forget that we're doing all those things.
Oh, gratitude.
I know people think on the internet, oh yeah, gratitude, bollocks. But it's a very liberating feeling when you're proud of what you've got.
Okay, so what makes you proud of what you've got, and what gives you that feeling of, I did this post about a year ago, and I said, imagine getting to your goal that's kind of like an arbitrary number, or an arbitrary idea of kind of what you'd somewhat like to get, and it was just gifted to you on a plate. There was no beads of sweat, there were no nails broken, and there was no blood drawn. I mean, how boring would that be? You would feel no sense of pride, no sense of gratitude, no sense of, oh my God, I did it. I did it. Like that feeling of, oh my God, I did it. Like that is the best feeling in the world, when you've been through the highs and the lows and the ups and downs and the vulnerability and the loneliness, and entrepreneurs are a really lonely sport. To get to that side and go, oh my God, I did it. Like, even if it's just a moment to yourself of, holy fuck, I did it. It's such a good feeling, but that feeling is gratitude. And I think the more that we do hard things, the more gratitude that we can feel. And, people talk about, and I thought, gratitude, like I get it, like logically I get it, but do you really get it emotionally and energetically? Because when you're in your vortex and your vibrational frequency of gratitude and yourself and your authenticity, and having those conversations that you're having with Marsh, and just being in that space, that's where more stuff and more things from your reality creation are actually magnetized to you, because you're aligning your frequency with that thing. And so when you're focused on lack, for example, why hasn't that money shown up yet? Why am I not doing $10,000 a month yet?
Why am I not earning what he's earning or she's earning?
Right. So all you're focusing on is lack. So you're out of your vortex. You're out of gratitude. This only comes when you're in it. So you've got one job.
Gratitude is operating. Gratitude is basically, for a moment in time, actually operating from within your area.
Yes.
So when people say gratitude, they go, but gratitude is just about going, I'm grateful or I'm proud. No. Gratitude is almost putting yourself in the center of the thing that goes, everything that I tried to magnetize or emotionally attract into my world through the work and the discipline that I've done actually has happened.
Yes.
And that's me idea creating, placing myself there and going, wow, holy shit, I was there and I'm here. It's not by surprise, it's by idea, and then creating and making it happen. So the gratitude is not just saying, I'm really grateful to be on planet Earth. I'm really grateful to be sitting in this room with you now, Rach. It's like, that's the fluffy bollocks, right?
It is.
But to me, when I sit down with Marsh and I said, 4 years ago, we said that we will not only be earning this, but living like this and doing this. And it was far outside what we could ever dream possible. And we're here right now. Let's take a moment.
Yeah.
That's putting us in our moment of gratitude for the idea creation that we have brought about.
Yes.
Through work and discipline. And I think that as an individual, is so powerful. And you touched on something a minute ago, which I think is really, really important that we kind of address. I've had some very, very lonely times.
I have.
Very, very, and now I had 5 years, Rach, where I stayed at home in my apartment in Nottingham, and I'll never forget the apartment. It was just looking over Nottingham city centre. I wake up in the morning and I was deep in bodybuilding, and all I did every morning was write articles, read, get up, personal training, bodybuild, eat, write articles, read, go on courses. And it was Groundhog Day for 5 years. I didn't drink. I stopped drinking. And there were many times I'd be at home, and I'm not going to shy away from this. I'd deliberately put sad music on, and I'd sit and I'd listen to music. My mum was a big Elton John fan back in the days, and I'd listen. And even I got into the James Blunt era when it all came out, and they were quite sad stuff I was listening to. And I would make myself feel really low, right? Because I was single, relationships weren't really coming out of it anywhere. I was building this business thing and I was building this reputation thing, but I wasn't really getting much for it. I was putting a lot in, but I wasn't getting a lot back. And I think a lot of people don't have that. Like it was tough, Rach. We talked about this earlier. It was so hard, but I'd do it again. I don't know what. I think the North Star, I think this idea creation, I think this energy frequency that I'd said to myself, I'm doing it. And clearly I have to do this. Do you know the funny thing is it comes from bodybuilding for me?
Yeah.
It comes from sport, because when I was 82 kilos and I knew I had to get to 95, that's not a 1 year goal. It's not a 1 year goal. And when I say I want to build a reputation in the fitness industry and have people know me for what I do, that I'm not creating a 6-month goal. I'm creating a multi-year goal further away. And to do that, there has to be the discipline, the pain, the work, the time. And those 5 years, the funny thing is I woke up every morning as optimistic and as excited to write the next article, but at the nighttime, lonely.
You've just explained what I went through.
Did that make sense? Thing. In the morning, I was excited. I did personal training. I did business. When I got to Friday night, I went to David Lloyd. I did my online check-ins at David Lloyd. I went for a swim at David Lloyd. I watched all these families and couples and see relationships. I'd go through the town in the evening in Nottingham and see couples walking for date night and everything. And I'd said, I'm not going to do all that. And I was actually making my life really uncomfortable, not allowing myself to get into a relationship, not drinking, going to the gym and training hard, going to bed early, waking up at 5:30 to go and do my writing and articles, yet every day feeling incredibly lonely. And I put myself through that.
But I did too. And I just it reminds me of like a time where I was in Australia and I had again, like you've explained, a fantastic apartment. It was, a beautiful apartment. But I remember, and I just distinctly remember, every weekend I'd have my set way of doing things. And then, on a Friday or Saturday night, I'd go to my Thai curry house, and he used to do like this beautiful organic massaman lamb curry, and I'd go and pick it up, and then I'd have that for dinner, and I'd go to bed early, and then I'd get up and go for a walk on Sunday morning. I had a routine.
Yeah, same.
Absolutely. It was routine.
Yeah.
And I felt like, but weirdly, I kind of enjoyed it, but I felt lonely. And I did feel like, am I ever going to meet somebody who's going to match me?
Yeah.
And who's going to be part of this? I don't want to go party anymore. I did party.
Isn't there a transitional phase where you come out of I think my phase was just like that. I was partying, my identity, which we talked about earlier. Mm-hmm. My identity revolved around, I still wasn't very big.
Yeah.
I'd let go of my identity as a party boy and pisshead and rugby lad.
Yeah.
And then I transitioned into the fitness industry and was lost. I didn't have an identity in the fitness industry. I chose to let go of my identity in the rugby world, and I left my hometown. And so I was in this apartment and I was trying to live the bodybuilder life, didn't know the fitness industry. And there was just in this lost limbo, which I think when you take on that identity as entrepreneur, you've got to leave behind a bit of an identity that was prior to that. I know some people live the entrepreneur life and still party life. That's fine. No, that's not what I wanted. So I basically went cold turkey.
Divorce former identity.
So I literally, and none of my friends will really get this in the hometown. Maybe they're listening to this, I don't know, or watching it. But one day I said, I'm going to let Newark go, my hometown. I'm going to leave that. I'm going to create a new identity as a bodybuilder, as an athlete, and a business owner. And I'm going to build my reputation in the fitness industry. That old identity just has to go. And that middle ground is where you go through the hardest phase of creating the new identity.
It's hard because you get pulled, you want to get pulled back into the old, and it's familiar, and those familiar patterns.
It's easy to say yes. Okay, yes. Sure. Why don't you have a beer? Yeah, go on then.
Go on then. Or like, you get the guy who was like, we kind of finished the relationship. He's like, do you want to go, should we go out for a drink? And it's like, it'd be so easy to say yes, but no. I was not to divorce the old identity, but that's.
I think a lot of people get that, right? You could divorcing an identity. I've not heard it called that.
Yeah, it's a phrase I used a lot.
It gave me a complete shiver through me when you said divorcing identity, because I'm 47 and I didn't actually, until you said divorcing an identity, realize that that's what I've done.
And then you go through the pain of a divorce. You go through the pain of a divorce.
You can probably feel me now that I'm having a bit of a light bulb moment, because I for a long time felt guilt to so many of my friends, because even I saw a friend of mine on Instagram this week. I God, I haven't spoken to her so long, and I'm like, I don't need to.
Right? Does it?
That's not who I was. It doesn't, mate. It doesn't add to me anymore. What does add to me is conversations like this, and the relationship we have with you and David, and people that are close to me now. And that's not to say I'm not grateful for my past and anti my past, but this identity is so different. For a long time, I didn't want to go back into my old town, because I really struggled to go into the town because I felt the old identity in there.
Yes.
And that became a problem to me.
Yeah.
Because you can't leave the identity in a town and then step out, because it still means that you're not comfortable in the new one.
Yeah.
So then when I went, I actually forced myself to go back a good few years ago now, and just was very proud about who I am now, but realized that everybody else there still had a bit of a problem with the new identity that I am. And I was like, that's okay with me.
That's okay.
That's okay with me. But I wanted to step in and see whether I felt guilt for the new identity or pride for the new identity. And I went back and felt obscene pride for the new identity. Yeah. And that was really important to me. But that identity shift, I think a lot of people really struggle with, but I think it's to be expected. Do you feel
absolutely to be expected? And we say the same when it comes to weight loss. So many people will say, when I get to, let's use a figure now. So when I get, let's just say you're 70 kilos and you want to get to 60 kilos. When I get to 60 kilos, that's when I'm going to feel good about myself. That's when I'm going to do this, this, and this. I'm like, you're living your life in the future. Now, here's the difference, right? Because some people will hear about what we said about, you got to create your next level version of yourself, operate from that vibrational frequency, make decisions from that place. That's not living your life in the future. That's making decisions from that place, and your reality comes up to that place. When I say you're living your life in the future, it's because you keep pushing out. I'm not there yet. I'm not there yet. You're still focusing on the lack. So yes, have your goal of hitting 60 kilos, but you have to love and accept yourself as you are right now, in order to be able to get there and to be then excited for the journey, right? That's the most important part in connecting those two worlds together. And so whilst you divorced the former self, you had this idea of what you wanted to do and you were operating and leading from that place, but you still had that love and acceptance, and you were building that love and acceptance of your true self. And I say this to you, I was doing it too, building self-worth, whilst being excited to being on the journey here. But you know what? Building self-worth when you have no self-worth or a little self-worth, or your self-worth is tied up in being busy and being achieving and being a superstar rugby player and being a party boy and being the one that the boys call and it's like, hey, Mark, let's get on it. It's going to be fun. They know that you're the one that's going to create the fun, right? I know that I would be called because I would be the one I was wherever the party was, or I was the party. And so same thing. That's not self-worth. And so you have to divorce all of that to then come back to, okay, so what is real self-worth? I don't know. I never felt good enough. I never felt smart enough. Like I talked about earlier, I never felt enough. But really that's a decision. And it also is a skill. And there is a way of doing that.
It also takes a lot to actually then see yourself as the new identity.
Yes,
because
it does.
so, for example, let's say you want your new identity. I wanted my new identity to be a reputation in the fitness industry, have a reputation in the fitness industry and be known for my craft and my results. That was the thing that I was after. But going from the old identity as party boy to that, there were some tick boxes that had to come along the way. Number one, I had to get my results featured in a magazine.
Yes, I
Number
did that too.
two, I wanted to be a speaker at Body Power.
Amazing.
So there was two. I wanted to be in a magazine and I wanted to be at Body Power. Now the problem is that's 1%er kind of thinking, because to get in a magazine like Men's Health, how the hell was that going to happen? But to get to speak at Body Power, there was probably 8 or 10 people that got to speak every single year. So I basically stretched here to identity here, not here to here. And that's a bit of a weird entrepreneurial thing. I'm not going to create the identity short term because I know it's achievable. I want to stretch it longer. Where the loneliness came is where I just battened down the hatches and worked and worked and worked. And then one day I got a text message from somebody that said, Mark, it's Steve Orton from Body Power, would love to have you speak. And I went, holy crap. And the reason I say that is because it takes a long time before the new identity will be solid.
Yes, it
and
does.
then there's this void where you've let go of the old identity and then you're in search of this new identity. And along the way, there was little micros like, your identity gets formed when I would get a transformation of a client. So it was micro acknowledgements to me that I was on the way.
Yes. And you've got to look out for those.
Yeah. Like new clients signing up nowadays. Like you have to be very intentional with an entrepreneurship. So let's say if your goal is to get to 1 million, in tick box 20 grand, tick box 40 grand, tick box 60 grand a month, whatever it is. But to form that identity, the identity is made up of the micro identity shifts along the way. Right?
Yes.
And I think that I wasn't really aware of that, because I think a lot of people have this vision of where they want to get to and the person they need to be to get to there. But these levels of gratitude of like, yep, you've ticked that box, you've ticked that box. It was almost like a micro identity. And I think for me, spending that 5 years on my own, I could see it happening. I wasn't there yet, but I just, as I got closer and closer in the 5-year time, I was like, it's coming. But it was those micro kind of identity shifts. But yeah, I mean, it was the loneliest, horriblest, hardest time. But you know what's funny? As soon as I got to that point where I'd got the identity shifted, I was like, what's the new one?
Right. So it never stands still.
It never stands still. You said this right at the beginning of the episode. Today, you were like, you've got to be okay as an entrepreneur with once you get to a certain level. It's part of our DNA, isn't it? That goes, I don't necessarily need to, right now, my identity as a husband, as an entrepreneur, it's very solid. But my identity for I think my identity, this could go on for a while, but my identity for my wealth is one that I struggled with for quite a long time. Because,
I did too.
Really?
Yeah, I did too.
Yeah.
And it felt like the thing that was the hardest.
This is crazy. So,
the body was easy.
I think the body was easy, and who I wanted to be was easy. An identity shift to being a father took me the first 12 to 14 months from Mason, because I really feel in the last month it's solidified.
Yes.
Now I have him giving me energy. I've shifted into the identity of a father quite well, but shifting into the identity of wealth and money and my own success as an entrepreneur is possibly the hardest that I'm shifting into. And I don't know whether that's the identity that my father had around money and what he created, because I think that the level of wealth that I'm working towards, I'm not where I want to be, and that identity around that aspect is something I'm continuing to work on. That's not something, I can sit here now and say, I know what my net worth is and I know what money I've got, but I know what I'm working towards. But my identity around being either wealthy or a wealth creator is an evolving identity.
There's two things that I want to tell you that I had two mentors say to me. The first one, she said to me, take an area of your life that you're really successful in and that you've got down pat and you absolutely nail it. So she said, obviously for you, it's your physique. Like, what do you do there? Like, what are your beliefs around your physique and your training that have led you to get to where you got to? So I wrote down a list of, all of the things that I do, and I had to bring them to the forefront because they're just subconscious now. So I had to bring them to the forefront, and it was things like, well, obviously I train 3 days a week. I mean, why would I not do that? I mean, obviously, like, the first thing I do when I look at a meal is, where's the protein? And so these are the obvious things. And then there were beliefs around it. So I've believed, I have this belief that I'm a fit and healthy, and I'm a really strong person. I have a very strong, very healthy, robust, athletic, lean physique. And I've been saying that to myself for years, probably the past 20 years. And so take those beliefs and then imprint it into business, wealth, and finance. And so that was one of the first things that she got me to do. And from there, that was a big shift. This would have been a couple of years ago, and that was a really big shift of stop. She said to me, stop making business so hard. She said, it's exactly the same as physique. It's exactly the same. You just need to install some new beliefs. And then the other thing was, this was a couple of months ago, I had a mentor say to me, what are you working towards in your various different aspects of your life? And he says to me, what are you working on with your physique? And I was like, well, I'm kind of in maintenance mode with my physique and, just kind of keep it where it is. He was like, that's the problem. And I was like, sorry. And I was like, I don't really feel like I'm not really, driven to improve my strength. I don't really want to kind of grow anymore. I'm happy where I am with my body fat. I was like, everything's good at maintenance. He was like, no. 1% better every day. And actually, Lewis Alsop talked about this at your event. He said exactly the same thing. He's like 1%.
Do you know
and
what?
That really
do you
stuck on my head.
He said he struggled with wealth.
Yes.
Because not to the fact that he's not wealthy, to the fact of how much. And he said, if Alsop and Alsop can grow by 10% a year, do you remember? He said, if they can grow by 10% a year, that's what he's striving for.
Yes.
And when he actually got the 10%, more than likely the company will grow by
80.
80, 90 plus. But the reality is, whoever knows, whatever it will grow by, with the intention of being happy with what that means to you.
Yes.
That's what will calm you and make you a better entrepreneur, a better leader, a better person, as opposed to not really having any kind of clarity on it. So for me, the identity, it's not an identity around my wealth. It's not an identity around how wealthy. It's more around the identity. I know the numbers, but I suppose it's making that shift. Yeah, a lot of people they'll sit there and they say, I identify as wealthy. I identify as successful. I identify as strong. I identify as lean. Do I need to put that identity, or is it more to do with slipping into the identity and being comfortable in that identity?
I think being comfortable in that
it's
identity.
Being comfortable in the identity of being able to talk. I suppose for many, many years in the fitness industry, my focus has been so much, and I worked with my personal development coach, and this has just twigged to me. When I lean more to being an entrepreneur and a wealth creator, the reason that I don't allow myself to identify as hard in those areas is because I don't want to, this came up 3 months ago, which has just reminded me, is because I don't want my identity as a coach to go.
Right. Isn't that interesting?
Right.
But I look at what you do and the value you provide to trainers in an industry. If we had, you've literally giving the blueprint on how to do it. I mean, we had to figure this stuff out for ourselves. And the value of, Mark, I want you to step into that, because the value that you can give this next generation of coaches is far greater than if you just stay a coach.
Do you know what I feel the next generation?
But you were a great coach, by the way.
Well, this is important to me, massively important to me. I feel there's a lot of business mentors that have shed the skin. That's why I want to. I feel, yeah, right. So I had a mentoring session with my personal development coach 3 months ago because of the identity around wealth and investment and finance. Because I had a big issue of, I think I need to spend 50% of my week building my property portfolio, and I'm not, right? But then the identity was around, is that because my father did the property and I feel like I'm under pressure to build a property portfolio? But I also said, the reason I don't want to spend too much time on my investments, it's better for me to put my time into lower risk investments, stocks and shares, and invest it there and allow me to get my returns, because my focus I want to be around this business. I know what my personality is like. If I focus too much on suddenly more real estate, and I will become so drawn into that,
Yes.
my personality will pull back on this business. And so I think the funny thing is, everything I do is very intentional and I'm in control. And one of the things we identify with my personal development coach is, you know what you're doing and why you're doing it. Because every time I say I'm doing something wrong, I gave her the reason why I was doing it. She went, there you go. You're in control. So the reason you're not pushing yourself towards real estate right now is because you would spend more time networking with real estate people, going out, look at properties and potentially pull yourself away from this. That then goes back to the identity, which I'm very, very good at identifying my identity. But at the same time, I need to be reminded of what I'm telling myself by telling somebody else. This conversation has helped because ultimately what I see so many business coaches do at the moment, and there's so many coming into the industry right now that have done it for like a year, 2 years, building an online business, 5 years. I've done it for 25 years, and they shed their skin as a coach. But I feel that what I don't want to shed, if my identity became entrepreneur, wealth creator, and business coach, then that professional coach, but I still walk the path.
It's in you.
Yeah,
like you're never going to, it's like stopping training.
Exactly.
It's never going to leave you.
It's interesting when you actually identify and look at why you're holding on to a part of that identity, is to just ensure that coaches are not coming into the industry with the expectation that they can build an online coaching business without being a great coach.
Absolutely.
And you've just said this, I've spent my whole career becoming a great coach. And half the reason why fitness coaches nowadays struggle online is because they can't create content because they don't know anything about coaching. They shed their coaching skin and just focus on the money and the business side. And then the integrity and authenticity around the product disappears. But I know you can do it all.
Yes.
I know you can be a great coach. The funny thing is, I let go of being a coach in favor of building a coaching brand, but I actually got my coaching team to do the coaching. And that's obviously what you can do with the leadership. You got to be a great coach. So I identify as an entrepreneur and as a father and as a wealth creator and a professional coach.
I also, now we're having this conversation. I still to this day also struggle to let go of, and we're never going to be able to let go of it, nor should we let go of being the professional coach. And for me, being a professional coach is also my certainty and my security because I'm so good at it. There's no one in the industry, and I'm not going to be arrogant saying this, I'm being confident saying this, there's no one in the industry who can do what I do. And I say that with absolute confidence. And so I can't let go of being a professional coach. But what I can do is then leverage that more to step into the entrepreneurship more. Because even though I've been doing this for 19 years, it scares the shit out of me. And so I think if we're going to, use a question that Stephen Bartlett uses quite a lot, which is, what's the most important thing that we haven't yet talked about today? And for me, it is that the fear in entrepreneurship, the fear in life, the fear of doing new things, it never really goes away. But it goes from being this noose around your neck. For me, fear used to be fear of not being liked, fear of being judged, fear of being criticized. I mean, people criticize and judge me every single day now, verbally. Like, people online are really mean, right? I get used to that. Mm-hmm. But the fear goes from being this noose around your neck, suffocating your authenticity, suffocating your life, your business, your body, your career, to being a kid in the back seat that's like, hey, mummy, do you know where you're going? Do you have a map in front of you? Do you know where you're going? And you turn around and you say, yeah, it's okay. Mummy knows where she's going. Right? So it's just like a little reminder sometimes, which is a good thing. Like, I quite like a little bit of fear because it makes me remember that I'm alive, and sometimes I don't know what the fuck I'm doing and I'm going to do it anyway. And that also ruffles the feathers of the rebel in me, that's, I can do this and most people can't. And I also like that too.
I think you got to acknowledge that. And do you know what? Just before I wrote my book 4 or 5 years ago, I can't remember how long it was now. And before I wrote my book, I felt hugely insecure about the idea of putting a book into the fitness industry. I've not told many people this, by the way. And I had a call with Clarissa, who helps me. And I said, I'm struggling with authenticity around writing a book. Why should they listen to me? And this was obviously nearly 18, 19 years into the industry. And so we did this aligned with the things that I value the highest in my life, and aligned with what I've done, and aligned with my my knowledge, my skill, my expertise, my vision for what I want to achieve. Why am I the person that should be positioned in the industry to write this? This is very comforting to me nowadays, because no one really knows how much I've studied. But I started to write down every course. And then I started to write down every result that I'd achieved by name of my clients.
Love that.
I then pulled together a folder with all of my transformations over the years. I then pulled together the amount of hours of coaching that I'd done. And it wasn't until I looked at that and I was like, that's unmatched. There's not many people can do what I've done. And as I started to do that, the sections of my book, the clarity with how much authenticity I have, and it was the most amazing 2-hour session with her where we went through my spirituality in terms of my values around my own growth as a person, wealth, physical health, my vocation and career path, my family, friends, and how all of these, what family and friends acknowledge me for what I've done, what have I achieved in the industry so far? And when I put all this down on a piece of paper, the clarity and certainty around why I deserve to do this. And that then goes back to me as a business coach, because when people say to me, what about all the other business coaches coming through? I was like, I'm not competing, because my friend, you can't compete with me.
No.
Like you can put an offer out there to help people make their first 10K per month, but it's not the same offer that I can make, because the realness of me, the realness of you, the realness of athletic Fox into the entrepreneur you are today, it's the complete package.
I remember walking into your office in 2015. So we actually only met in person in 2015 when I moved to London, and I just met David, and we were at like Michael Golden's office, I think, and I was like, Mark Coles.
It was crazy. Well, you were getting treatment,
yes,
and I think we'd connected on Instagram a while before, whatever it was.
We knew each other.
Recently, we'd connected back and forwards on Instagram occasionally, but then you were on the table in Michael's place, and I was like, holy crap. You know,
Athletic Fox.
Yeah, it was Athletic Fox. And then we went for lunch.
Yes.
I don't know whether it was Browns or something like that. And we had some food, and that's where we connected. And I think that back then was you were the coach.
Yes.
We all knew Athletic Fox in the fitness industry. I was a professional coach.
Well, so I remember walking into your office because I went home and I said, I met Mark Coles today. And I said, obviously I just moved to London. I was looking for a trainer. Came up to, I was like, well, I'm not going to train with anyone here in London. Like, the best coach in the UK is Mark. Well, I'm going to make the trip up to Nottingham. And I remember standing in your office and you were like, right, well, I'm not going to tell you got a great physique. No, what did you say? You said something around the lines of, I'm not going to tell you you've got a great physique. We can make it a lot better.
Better.
And I was like, I really like you, because I didn't want to be told, oh, you got a great physique. I don't want to be told that.
Yeah.
I'm here to be better. I'm here to be the 1%. I'm here to grow. And I really respected that. And still now with what you do, like, that level of authenticity comes through in what you do. And you've got, oh my God, if anyone is going to be a business coach in the fitness industry, it's you. I cannot name anybody else who can stand there with the level of authority, certainty, results in not just being a professional coach, but building businesses that you have. There is nobody who plays that game. No one. You play your own game. And I think that's amazing.
But hence why we're here today, right? Because at the same time, with your transition from Athletic Fox into the business that you've got, you know, what's the point in an entrepreneur or woman taking advice on fat loss from somebody that's been an entrepreneur and lost 20 pounds in the last 6 months? You've walked, talked, eat, sleep, breathe, mum, business, entrepreneurship, travel. I mean, it's the complete package. And it's no wonder that we're such close friends, because not only have we been in the industry a long time, we share a huge amount of values, not just around our family, but our energy and what we're trying to build and create, that an entrepreneurial woman would be stupid not to have you in her corner. Because when you came to your talk at London Live, which is on my YouTube channel, I think, Michael?
Dubai Live.
We
did Dubai, yeah.
Is it on the channel? Yes. And it's on there. And the impact that you had, and this is funny, you can have a business talk. This isn't a business podcast as such. We have covered everything from systems and relationships and family to energy. And the reason why when somebody works with you, it's not just about the body, it's the whole package. And that's why what's hard is that when people say, what tactics can you give me? Somebody messaged me last week and said, can I pay for an hour of your time? I said, my friend, like,
No.
pay for a year of my time, right?
Yeah.
Because a 1 hour of my time, I can't give you what would give me justice or give you justice. One, it would cost you a hell of a lot of money. And two, within 1 hour, you're not going to get anything that's going to be transformative. And I think everyone nowadays wants that quick thing. What we've just described is 19, 20 years worth of your career, 25 years worth of my career, you know, all wrapped up in a program, Chase Life, that is absolutely transformative, but you've got to be ready.
Yes.
This is the same in Coaching Concierge with our programs. You've got to be ready. Somebody messaged me and one of my team said to me, look, I've got a coach that's doing 20 grand a month. They've got 100 clients. What's the condition that he can now step up into the scale program? And I said, not a dick.
We use that in our marketing behind the scenes too.
This is interesting because Ben Francis with Gymshark, I believe that's in their gym or they're at Birmingham head office. I don't know whether I'm not going to quote this, but it's something a lot like, don't accept dicks or just not a dick. But ultimately, it was like, there's a lot of ego in the fitness industry at the moment because there's not a lot of depth to their personality and character. So it's very fast money, quick following, and a lot of emotional instability, which makes it very hard for me to work with those types of people. Mm-hmm. There's no depth. There's 100,000 followers. There's 20 grand a month in the business, but there's no emotional maturity. Mm-hmm. And they are not the type of people I like working with. And if this podcast, you're listening to this right now, I don't want to work with you, right? And that's very, very clear. We've made the mistake, by the way, for the last 2.5 years of accepting these types of people into our world. I haven't got the patience. Mm-hmm. And you know what? The high quality and caliber of coach that's in my program that teaches our stuff, they haven't got the patience. I have really not helped my team by allowing people into the business. One of my biggest downfalls in the last 2 years is revenue at the sacrifice of people.
We've all done it. All done it.
Not to the point where it screwed things up, but to the point where we let the wrong people in at certain points and these are seasons of business.
Yes.
I had to go through this to go, we've allowed those people in. And what my team said to me this morning, he's making 20 grand. He's got 100 clients. What do you require? I said, he needs to be coachable. He needs to be a good coach and he needs to not be a dick. Because those three things, we can help you build a great business. But if you are a dick and you're not coachable and there's too much ego, then you're acting out of a place where you believe you're better than us to start with.
Yes. That doesn't work.
And you're not going to hold yourself accountable to the work. And unfortunately, in this day and age, there are too many coaches, Rach, that put the responsibility on us to build the business. You're not calling me every single day. You're not sending me a WhatsApp, making sure I'm okay. You're not doing this. I'm like, hold on a minute. I paid 50 grand recently for a mentorship. And in the last 3 months, I have had 2 phone calls.
Are you at 6 months old wanting to be stream fed?
Exactly.
Oh my God, come on. One of the things that we say to our clients is that I can't want your dream more than you want it.
Oh,
like, I want you to be successful. Like, there's nothing that fills my soul more than when somebody is absolutely crashing it, but you got to want it more than I do. I'm not going to drag you through this kicking and screaming. I can't be like, I'm going to check up on you. I'm going to tell you.
By the way, is this entrepreneurial women that are crushing it money-wise? Is this, in our program, we've got coaches that are making 20, 30, 40K. They're acting like this. We're not talking about these ones that are earning 1 or 2 grand with us.
No.
We've got some of these ones that are earning 20, 30, 40,000 so fast into their life that their bank balance is quicker than their emotional level of stability.
Well, it won't last very long, and with it, I mean, come back to me in a year's time. Come back to me in 2 years' time. Because I can tell you now, you're not going to be in industry.
They do. You know, Michael's been by my side for long enough now to see the people that go out and then they want to come back. Yes. And then they say this. And do you know what? There are sometimes it rocks me when I tell my wife, I said, God, you know, that person's left the program and it's just left on really bad terms because it's been blame me and my team for what we've not done. But my friend, a year to 2 years later, you will. I had somebody only 6 months ago say to me, 4 years later, I'm so glad of what I did with you 4 years ago, but I was a dick. And I went, it's fine.
Yeah.
I've worked with a lot of dicks, but also I've been a dick.
Yeah.
Right. So I know you're going to be a dick, and our program and our team take punches in the face from you guys, and we'll get paid, and you won't realize how valuable we've been to you until you've gone through 2 more seasons, 5 more mentors, fucked up a lot. And then you say, thank you.
It's so funny you say that, because one of my mentors, Dave and I invested in a mentor about 2 years ago, 18 months, 2 years ago. And it was a very, very big investment. And at the time it was going through, and I was like, I wasn't in my head. I wanted to get this out of the coaching relationship. And instead I got something completely different. And there was part of me at the time that was like, this is not what I need. This is not what I want. I'm here to grow my business. And I don't want to be talking about this other stuff. I cannot tell you now how valuable that $100,000 investment I made has paid dividends. And at the time, he dragged me through it kicking and screaming, but he knew he held a strong frame for me to just sit in the discomfort, as we were talking about earlier, to sit in the discomfort, to sit in the period and the phase that the business was in at the time, which was winter. It was the winter phase of redevelopment, redefining, preparing to come out of my maternity leave as this next level. But that was so uncomfortable, and I'm so grateful for him.
Maturity to ride through it, right?
I had to ride through it, and my God, I found it uncomfortable. But I also knew at the time, oh, this is what I need, and it's so uncomfortable. But can you just give me can we just at least just do this short-term thing? We just have a bit of a cash injection here. And he was like, no. And I was like, oh, that hurt.
I've had that many times with mentors.
But I'm so grateful for him.
Yeah. And do you know what's funny? This comes back to what we talked about earlier. I've been probably over the last year, I've been guilty of tactical, let's throw something in, let's do something. Yeah. And I owe it to apologies to my team in times where I just go, guys, it brought rubbish into the program. It upset the morale of the team. And that one little ego lift of I need to do this without the maturity to just say, and I say I'm 47 maturity, I mean business maturity, to say, you don't need it. Yeah. If you have to eat into your pot of cash by 100 grand to ride through winter to then make 500 grand, then put the 100 in, but don't do something detrimental to the business, and listen to what you're being advised. But interestingly, a lot of the fitness industry, especially right now, I did a episode with Hamid here, and I said there are so many millionaires in the making. There are so many millionaires now, but the millionaires making. We got coaches on a call with us recently, are in our 10K table, and they're all earning 10 to 15,000, and they're all attentive and listening to the call. I said, just do me a favor. You will be a millionaire. You will. But you got to ride the journey, and stay on the horse, and the saddle will slide, everything will get rocky, but stay the course. And that's exactly what you said. And I just think that,
that's the biggest thing. I think
huge,
that's if you're listening to this at whatever stage in your career, whether you're in your 20s as a young trainer coming through this, or, you're in your 40s as a C-suite exec, and you've got a family to look after, it's the same thing, is stay the course, and you got to ride the waves. It's not all sunshine and rainbows, and thank God that it's not, because we'd all be really bored and the game would be over. And actually, it's really fun riding the waves, because otherwise, if we didn't have the waves, we wouldn't be sitting here telling these stories.
Do you know what's funny? A surfer will sit out at sea, waiting for one. And they will get up and they will get crushed down, and they will get up and they'll crush down, and then they get that great wave, and then they go, do you know what? I'm going to go back out there again and get beaten up. And it's so funny, but it's like rugby. I used to come off a rugby field, smashed and battered and bruised, and with maybe 3 losses in a row. Yeah. And then you know that win's coming. But, the optimism. And it was a great book, Sporting Greats. I can't remember. The Something of Champions that Ben Pekulski gave me years ago. Something of Champions, the book was. And he said, one of the most amazing things about golfers is their optimism.
They are so eternally optimistic
because they just keep playing, and it keeps getting worse or better or worse or better. And they're just hole after hole after hole, shot after shot after shot. And they're working on those micro improvements. And I think when it comes to entrepreneurship, whether your business is making 100 grand a year or 5 million a year plus, whether you're an entrepreneur in trying to get in better shape and take leadership and accountability for your family whilst you've got control of your business, all of this is actually acknowledging that it's a journey, and it's acknowledging that there's ups and downs, but it's about perfecting it all. And perfecting it all is going to take time, and perfecting it all is going to come with expectations of it going up and down. And the whole thing about this episode, which I think is a perfect time for us to kind of wrap it up, is that we're talking from a place of experience. And I don't think that really can be, who are you listening to right now? Are you listening to a place of quick tactics and exciting pieces of advice? Are you listening to experience?
We could give you tactics and exciting pieces of advice, but honestly, it probably wouldn't take you too far.
Well, because it's a quick up,
and
then it's a quick down, because the downs come when there's emotional instability, the identity is not aligned, and there's no clarity with the path that you're working towards. So there's a lot of uncertainty there. But this episode for us both has been such a long time coming. It's funny. I said to David when we met at the hotel recently for my wife's birthday, I said, every time we get together, we don't have a long conversation.
No.
And that's a sign of a great friendship. But at the same time, we said we must do a podcast. And I sit here and I'm probably knocking on 2 hours now. And if this is something that we feel we needed to give to both our respective industries, isn't it?
Absolutely. And I think for to get things off our chest as well, in terms of.
But this wasn't a moan. None of this is a moan. But it's like.
It feels so cathartic to actually share that experience, because I used to love listening to podcasts with people who were experienced and hearing their stories and like hanging on in there. And it really helped me become more resilient. And honestly, if I could name my North Star, so I have my North Star. And if I could name that, and if I could humanize it, it's delusional optimism. I'm delusionally optimistic about everything in life. And that has served me for a very, very, very long time. It will continue to serve me for the rest of my life. I'm delusionally optimistic, and I'm a very happy person, but I choose happiness, and I've created that for myself.
Do you know what? Delusional optimism is phenomenal. And I stand by something for myself, which it's always been that internally I'm striving for excellence for me in multiple areas of my life. I've spoken in this, Dr. John DeMartini introduced me to the 7 areas of life. And I'm trying to be fulfilled spiritually and emotionally and calm and fulfilled. I'm striving for that. I'm striving to be eternally fulfilled with what I know and not leaving my cup empty. Mm-hmm. I'm striving for my physique, my love and connection and my relationship and my health and fulfillment in my career and purpose, and creating meaning to the world, and giving and leaving something that's helped impact a lot of people along the way. And because it's so multifaceted, it doesn't mean I'm ever going to be done. And as Sheikh Mohammed says, excellence doesn't have a finish line.
I love that.
And it's so funny, because I feel we get frustrated because we get annoyed that we're not done. And I'm like, I'm no matter whether I'm going through winter or summer or whatever season I'm at in business. I said to my wife the other day, I don't know why I'm so optimistic, because sometimes I'm getting punched so hard in the face and I don't know if it's going to stop.
It won't stop, but that's exactly what delusional optimism
is all about. And I think I'm going to listen to that, because excellence for me is always striving to be better. Yes. But also, I don't think from an entrepreneur, you can take away the word that an entrepreneur has obscene optimism, that if they keep doing the right things, not just optimism and it'll get better, if they take action on the right things.
Yes.
That I don't think I've ever come across an entrepreneur that's not crushed it.
No. But you're going to get punched in the face a lot.
A lot. It's going to hurt. And Rach, this is one of the most enjoyable conversations I've had on a podcast in my whole entire career. I thank you for your friendship as well, because it means the world to me. And
thank you. I've enjoyed it immensely.
Family. So that's it, guys.
That's it.
I'll say this. If you want to get hold of Rach, if you're listening to my podcast, where should everybody follow you?
You can find me at the Rachel Godfrey on Instagram. That's where I'm most active. And then our website, chaselifeconsulting.com. And likewise, Mark, you are?
I'm at Mark Holes M10 on Instagram. And then we've got coaching-concierge.com online. So you'll find out everything about us there. It's been wonderful. Guys, I hope you've enjoyed this episode. And
Thank you so much.
We'll see you soon.
Ciao for now.